dozens of people marked on as a top issue in our listening lab earlier this year was salaries for first responders. The county budget, as you already know, is tight this year. How would you address the issue of salaries for our deputies and first responders?
Well, they've been working on a salary schedule now, and I believe that salary schedule is probably going to be passed before the next mayor takes an office. The problem is they're going to require the next mayor and the administration to fund it. So that's going to be a little difficult to do. But I think the programs like the Justice Works that we talked about is going to save enough money to put there. There's several revenue streams that we have found that can supplement that budget. And I think that once we do those new things without raising taxes, we're going to be able to save enough money to meet those budgetary requirements. The county does budget every year for new officers. And they'll set aside approximately 50 salaries of about 50 officers, but they generally don't hire them. Through attrition and the new hirees, they ended up not needing that money for officers, so they pull that out of the budget and they put it back into the general fund and it gets spent. So I think we're going to have to do some things to make sure that money is set there and is designated for that particular purpose. Another thing we can do that they do in other counties, and I like doing best practices, is you have situations where you have school zones. Those school zones have the cameras that prevent people from speeding through those school zones during the school time. The school system would have to agree to do it, and of course the county would have to agree to do it, but they would install the equipment for free in those bus areas. The money would go 100% to funding public safety and nowhere else after the equipment is paid for and the company receives their percentage. That's another option that doesn't cost taxpayers a penny, and it also decreases the chance of one of our students getting hurt or injured at a school zone. Right now they've done some studies, and really there's sometimes locations that we have in Bibb County that have 600 and 700 violations per day at a school zone, which is scary for our school, but also a way that we can increase some revenue.
We had talked before about wasteful spending. As Ashton said, with the budget this year being tight, corona revenues down and all that kind of stuff. What kind of wasteful spending do you think is still going on, and what kinds of how would you tackle that, or what kinds of cuts would you make?
Well, you have to make a priority. I'm not sure what the cuts I would make at this time is, because we have to look at the priorities. It's easy to sit from the outside and look at a budget, but if you don't know all the information they talk about in executive session about what issues that they know about that the general public don't know, you can't really judge that. But I've done the same thing with the school system. We look at priorities. In our school system, when we started talking about giving raises to employees, we chose the educators first and our public safety second. And we did that on purpose because the educators are the person who touched the child. And we want to provide a safe environment, so the police officers are one who actually protect that child while they're at school, or at least take care of the needs there. So you prioritize that, and we've done just that. But not only that, we were able to actually give everybody in our school system raises without raising taxes for those period of years, and we were able to do that because we prioritize. I would do the same thing with the zero-based budgeting here with the government. We will prioritize, and we will take each and every commissioner that we have, and all 9 of them will play a part in that. Even though the mayor creates the budget, we have to work through this together. And I think if we put public safety first initially, and we fund that properly, then we'll have agreement on everything else. So I do think that there's going to be some ways, there can be some budget challenges, and we're going to have to tighten up the belts a little bit. But we're to the bare bones on a lot of employees, and we got to find out ways that we can actually do a lot more with not a lot less, a lot more money. So that's going to be some challenges that I'm looking forward to face. It's nothing that I'm not used to with the school system, and I look forward to the opportunity to do so.
And I know this year with the budget, the county has had to resort to furloughing employees. How would you keep the budget balanced if the COVID-19 crisis gets worse and hurts the budget further? What would your priorities be? Would it be increasing taxes, furloughs, more budget cuts, anything like that?
Well, I don't think that you look at what we just did at the school system. We didn't furlough any employees this last time. Even though we have a 14% that later got reduced to a 10% cut in our overall budget, we didn't furlough any employees because our employees are our backbone, and they're the ones who have to educate our children. You do the same thing over in Bibb County. You can look at going to a 4-day work week. You can look at some, they had an option to furlough some people but allow them to still get money through the stimulus program that they have. They chose not to do that. I don't think you start getting rid of employees. You have to eliminate travel immediately. All the frills that you have to maybe outsource a few jobs that you're doing to make sure that you get the best value for that. You can't continue to pay. You may have to refinance some debt. Bibb County has a lot of debt, and right now with the interest rates being lower, you can refinance some of that debt. You have to look at eliminating some positions through attrition that you may not be getting the best value of. One thing I think Bibb County needs more of is people who write grants. A good grant writer is worth their, they're worth their weight in gold, because they may get paid X amount of dollars, but they'll raise 2 or 3 of that amount in grant money alone, which saves the county money. You can do that all throughout. You can do it with blight, you can do it with public safety, you can do it with all kinds of things. You also can share certain services with the Bibb County school system. You can cooperate on things like the Land Bank Authority, through maybe the library system, through industrial authority funding, through Chamber of Commerce funding. There's a lot of things that we're at the same table instead of being in our silos. We could do to save the citizens some money in Bibb County, and we can maximize the use of our dollars, and we can put them where we need to put them, and it's our children.
And in the past, you said you wouldn't raise taxes. With this COVID-19 crisis, do you think that you would consider, being in support of that?
I don't think so. I don't think we need to raise taxes. I'm actually looking at putting a lot of time and effort in the very beginning on an OLOST. I think an OLOST is going to be something that's needed in our community. It's failed at least 3 occasions, and the reason I believe it's failed is because they haven't had, enough bipartisan support. I think I'm the only candidate that can get that done. I've had conversations with most all the legislators. I know the reasons that it failed, and I believe I can bring it up to the table to make sure it passes. But I would require 100% rollback, on that millage rate to our taxpayers. When you roll the millage rate back 6 or 7 mills, it's going to make a huge difference in the taxpayers' pocketbooks. And they're going to be able to spend that money and help our community out by injecting that kind of cash. Because everybody's not just going to put that money in the bank and not spend it. They're going to use it for resources and for things that they want to purchase here in Macon, Bibb County. And we're hoping they're going to do that because it's going to increase our revenue. So I think the OLOS is going to be a big part of that. I do not believe we can consider raising the taxes. We pretty much all taxed out. We've gotten a 3 mil tax increase, it seems like, every year. We went through a government shutdown a couple of years ago, and it's something the taxpayers certainly don't want, and I don't intend to do it.
Of course, there's a current pay scale study going on now to kind of bring us in line with other communities of like size to retain officers. What else do you think needs to be done in terms of county employees? Should they, for example, have hazardous duty pay over the COVID? Should salaries be increased, or are you waiting for the pay scale study as well to see what that reports? Or do you have any, solutions for the flight of law enforcement officers and others?
Liz, it would be easier for me to look at you, but I've been instructed to turn to Ashley, so don't you think I don't? So let me turn to Ashley and answer that, and I'll try to keep that.
She gets all the smiles.
I tell you, every community have to prioritize what we place our emphasis on. I think our first responders, all of the men and women who serve this community, deserve to be treated fairly. I think every one of our first responders, oftentimes we don't think of first responders as the paramedics, but those are first responders. We don't think of first responders as emergency room staff, but those are first responders. We don't think of first responders as the people that work at Public Works. They are first responders as well. When we have issues, whatever they are, we have men and women that serve this community that deserve to be treated fairly. I can't say I have the answers to what the pay study is going to show. But if we have a administration that is committed to equity, balance, and fair play, I think it covers it all. Now, what that actually look like when the pay study come back, if we use as the starting point for how we operate as equity, balance, and fair play, and we're committed to that, that will run deep throughout my administration. Every department head will understand we are here to serve this community. As mayor, I will work for this community. I'm not sitting on some pedestal. I am a servant of this community. That's what I signed up for. So I will continue to listen. I will continue to evaluate the data. But what is the core of what we're trying to establish? Equity, balance, and fair play.
And I know that you mentioned that you would work closely with the sheriff. How is this going to be different? You know, if you're elected mayor, what would you do differently that Mayor Rickard and Sheriff Davis has done during their time?
You know, Mayor Rickard has had his own his priorities, and his administration operated in what he felt was best. Mayor Rickard relationship with Sheriff Davis, I can't speak to that. What I can speak to is how close I will work with our top law enforcement officer, trying to understand how we as a community can accomplish the goals and objectives that we set for ourselves. I am very pleased with the job Sheriff Davis has done in a predominantly urban city. We don't have some of the issues that exist in other parts of the country, and that's a testament to Sheriff Davis and his management and leadership style. So I'm not speaking to what his relationship was with the current mayor versus what it'll be with me. What I want this community to know is I will work hand in hand closely with the sheriff of this community to make sure the role that a sheriff department is supposed to play is what this community is getting and deserves.
Now, of course, COVID all around. We know that it's pretty much decimated some sales tax revenues and such going in. A lot of what's going on with the budget, they decided to punt the furloughs for county workers until after January to see how things happen. What is your strategy to combat, and you've got a little piece of tissue that stayed on your head, that you, on the other
Right
side,
there.
closer to the street, yeah, it's right there.
It's still there.
You just need- there,
You
yeah,
got it.
It had a little snowflake on your forehead. it
Thank
looked
you,
like.
thank you.
But what specifically would you try to do to combat any revenue shortfalls going forward?
One of my greatest concerns for our community is what our economic situation will be coming out of this coronavirus ordeal. This community has invested a lot in infrastructure and businesses, and I want to see what it will take to shore up the investment that we have. There will most definitely be shortfalls from revenues, anticipated revenues in our community. What I can assure this community of is I've been here before. I was the chairman of the lead economic development arm when we went through the greatest economic downturn in a generation. We made smart decisions then. We positioned ourselves well. And when we came through that ordeal, we was positioned to take advantage of some of the opportunities. We laid the foundation, and the result of that came in the greatest economic achievements this community has had in its history. I know, Liz, and I know you know clearly, Kumo Tire didn't drop out the sky. Urban Tissue didn't drop out the sky. Amazon, First Quality Diaper Plant. I can go on and on and on with the successes. That was coming off the greatest economic downturn in a generation. My strongest skill set is the economic development component. My record speaks for itself in that arena. We need someone with that experience who know how to negotiate smart negotiations on the behalf of this community. That's what I look forward to, and it's gonna take us hitting the ground running in a real way to get that done.
Just to follow up, there likely would be a delay in any further economic development coming directly into the revenue stream. So would you consider raising taxes to make up shortfalls if the industry picture doesn't improve as quickly as you would like?
You know, that's a very honest question. and it deserves a very honest answer. As mayor, I will evaluate all of the options that are needed. But at the end of the day, as mayor, my job is to work for you, the voters, the residents. This community deserves someone who will listen to them. What is raising taxes? Raising taxes just simply means whether we want to keep the libraries open. Raising taxes just simply means, do we want to go to garbage collection once a month? Raising taxes mean, are we willing to fund what's needed to support our young people? Raising taxes mean whether or not we want to commit to supporting the arts. Raising taxes mean whether or not we want to have the community that we're willing to pay for. And that's not a Clifford Whitby question, that's a community question.
So would you raise taxes? That would be a yes?
If the community vote to fund, we have to fund the community we want. So what's on the table for our options? My record show, I know how to maneuver through with the resources. When I took over the Industrial Authority, it operated on $250,000 a year annual appropriations. When I left the Industrial Authority, we had tens of millions of anticipated revenues coming in through the pilot payments. That was an initiative that my administration put in place that funds economic development to this day. And so what I'm saying to this community is, I'm not saying that we will not have to raise taxes. I'm not saying we're gonna have to raise taxes. What I am saying is that's a decision that we have to make as a community.
So how would you assess the budget passed by commission this spring with the large budget cuts? Do you think it was too far? Do you think it was enough? Or what's your thoughts on that?
When you're sitting in those seats and you're having to make decisions, they're making decisions to a degree.
Sorry, there was
yeah.
We probably should start over. Is that
Yeah.
a floor behind him?
What happened?
There was a gender reveal right behind you. I'm sorry.
Oh man.
I'm not going to start it over. Just start with you.
Okay, sorry. I saw that in behind. I'm like, we probably should start from the beginning again. Also, you have a napkin right there. Oh, you got it. Great. So how would you assess this spring's budget, and then was it too far, too much?
I have a great deal of appreciation for sitting in the seats, having to make tough decisions. To be quite honest about it, the commission was caught in this crisis that came out of nowhere seemingly, and dealing with that. I cannot Monday morning quarterback the decisions they've made to date. One of the things I will say, and I can say, is I was taught as a young boy, the rain show up the holes in the roof. So I think we would have to look at these shortfalls where they fail and really understand how do we shore up and put in the safety nets necessary, because things are going to happen. We're gonna have situations we must deal with. And one of the things as mayor I would be looking at is evaluating where these shortfalls came and as a result of reducing sales tax and property taxes maybe not being what was anticipated. What are the measures we can take to learn from this event and this episode so that we can be stronger forward? It's one thing that understand you have a situation out of your control. It's another thing to learn from it and put in measures that can prevent it or at least minimize it going forward.
A lot of municipalities are struggling with providing pensions and keeping up benefits that were promised decades ago. If the county gets in a shortfall and is in serious trouble, how would you feel about trying to reduce pension benefits or other post-employment benefits for workers who have retired?
I believe you honor the commitments you made to people that have served this community. I would never, ever not honor what has been promised to retirees as the mayor of this city. Again, you are as good as your word. These commitments was made. We as a city must stand by them, and as mayor, I stand by those commitments that has been made to those who have served this community for years and is expecting what was promised to them.
And there's another question I have on the budget. I know that Mr. Miller has really focused on cutting wasteful spending. Do you think that you would want to do that if elected mayor, or how would you go about that?
Any good administrator, any good manager would look at across the board and evaluate a waste in a system. I just want to make sure that we all understand what is wasteful to one group may not be wasteful to another group. So it really depends on how you view that, what prism you choose to look at waste, et cetera, et cetera. We know what the priorities are for this community. And as mayor, I would be very sensitive and govern with the sensitivity that is required to a community like Maconville.
Of course, jobs are always on the forefront. The unemployment rate is up since COVID. Aside, you've talked about industry and recruiting and bringing people in, but what other ways could you provide for jobs in this community?
Now that is the best question of the day for me, and let me tell you why. There's low-hanging fruit that is here for this community to take advantage of. Our greatest asset rests right here within our community. You cannot be a thriving, growing community when you're constantly losing your most precious resource, which is our young people as they matriculate through high school and college. We've got to find ways to support